Yes, thank you. So thank you so much for coming to our session. Our session title is Sustainable Finance for Water Security through Standardized Reporting and Accountability. This session will be organized as one of Asia Pacific focus session. And my name is Yumiko Asayama, Chief Manager of Japan Water Forum and also the Secretariat of the Asia Pacific Water Forum. We are organizing 4 Asia Pacific focus sessions, and this session is one of them. And this session explore how countries in Asia and the Pacific can capitalize on the alignment of global reporting standards, on the alignment of global that for finance investment accountable for climate sustainability goals and commitment. Asia Pacific region, as you know, stands as a global manufacturing powerhouse, offering a unique chance to activate, shape the evolving landscape of finance and investment in water security, encompassing sustainable change and infrastructure projects. Financing water security and climate adaptation redefine financial institutions' strategic focus. Against the backdrop of escalating insecurity challenge, the key lies in ensuring the delivery of commitment, prospering Asia Pacific countries towards water secured future. Recently, a promising development arises as a regulator in many economies and financial markets move toward standardizing financial and non-financing report and disclosure. And this shared initiative holds finance and investment accountable for meeting sustainability and climate goals. Commitment extended to financial capital, performance, and outcome resulting from investments. For Asia Pacific region, capturing this kind of opportunity has becoming very, very imperative. Hence, this session will cover prospect of implementing global reporting standards on corporate activities related to climate change, water risk, and any sustainability issue in Asia Pacific region. This session will also address mobilization of financial and investment funds to tackle climate change from a water perspective, ensuring accountability through these kind of standards. In this session, panel discussion will discuss data, capacity building, and partnership building to meet these needs and disseminate key message and policy recommendation. This session will emphasize integrate water security and ecosystem resilience into the evolving landscape, promoting accountability, interoperability and reliability and cost effectiveness in supply chains and infrastructure projects. This session will consist of 3 parts. In the beginning, we will have a keynote presentation from Patricia CDP. Then we will have 2 case studies from Japan and Indonesia. And then we move on to the panel discussion with 4 panelists from on-site and online. Then we will also interact with you, audience, through Q&A. So now I would like to invite Ms. Patricia Cardemon from Head of Water CDP. She will deliver keynote presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Yumiko. Thanks. Perfect. Can you hear me? Perfect. Excellent. Welcome everybody to World Water Week. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, we go back to the beginning. Yeah, so I'm here to present to you in regards to CDP, some of the trends that we're gathering from Asia and globally, as well as the water-related risk and opportunities that companies are telling us that they're facing, and the vital role that financial institutions have to play. But first, for some of you that may not know how that CDP works and what it is, and I hope that many of you already do, we are a nonprofit, and we gather data on behalf of investors purchasing organizations and city, states, and regions, particularly on behalf of investors, we have 746 investor signatories, which represent a combined 136 trillion in assets. On behalf of them, we request the downstream stakeholders, so listed companies, suppliers, and local companies to disclose on environmental themes. The primary things that we've been working towards for the last few years have been climate change for over 20 years, water security for 14 years, forests more recently, and also we have biodiversity, we have plastics, and from this year, we are requesting companies to disclose on oceans. We do it by means of questionnaires, and these questionnaires are TCFD, have been TCFD aligned from 2018, and from this year, they are partially aligned with TNFD. With the Task Force for Nature Financial Disclosures, we have a brand new integrated questionnaire, brand new portal. So on behalf of these requesting authorities, we request companies to provide us this data, and this data is then fed back to the requesting authorities. The data is then used for making decisions in terms of investment and driving incentivization on water security, and what we call it the ABCs. For companies that disclose to CDP, they're able to have access to capital. They can drive business competitiveness to a race to the top. We have scores, compliance. There's emerging regulations that are happening, as we all know, with CSRD and other disclosure regulations. We're talking about disclosure. And this is a map of the mandatory water disclosure landscape that was released by a global policy team back in September 23. And they're monitoring and they're really advocating on water disclosure for the G20. But as you can see in the light blue, the one that's ahead of it is the European Union, as we all know, with the CSRD. However, there are other jurisdictions such as Brazil, India, South Africa that are slowly coming are moving. And so approximately 40% of G20 plus jurisdictions have introduced or are in the process of introducing the means of water-related requirements. But as you can see, it's patchy. It's we consider it to be still insufficient. And what we need is we need a level playing field for companies. Either you're operating in Europe, you have subsidiaries elsewhere operating in regions, so that financial institutions are able to use comparable decision useful data to make and pricing water risks. And as I said, the water program has been going for 14 years, and this is some of the last few years. For 2023, we had 4,815 companies disclosing on water. However, we have 8,541 that do not do so. And this is big companies like Apple, Tesla, Shell, Nike, Amazon that have continuously refusing to disclose to CDP. However, we made a significant investment on the platform, and we're managing to scale up. And for the first time this year, we're requesting on behalf of investors over 20,000 companies to disclose on water. So last year we had requested about 13,000 to disclose on water. This year we're requesting 20,000 on behalf of the investors. And that's not including those. That's not including supplier companies that are being requested by the large buyers themselves. If I move into the split by region, you'll be glad to know that the Asia region is ahead with 39% of that share, 25% in Europe, 19% in North America, and a bit less so in Latin America, and obviously we need much more work in Africa and Oceania with 1% of that share, in particular, as we know, they are water-stressed areas. And as I said, I'm not only going to bring you the disclosure and where we are with the mandatory disclosure landscape, but this is hot off the press with my team. We released this in an infographic, and it's the data on the global river basins, and in particular, the financial impact across 10 critical river basins. And for the audience, there's 6 of them in Asia. And we found that 505 companies reported to us that water risk are having a financial impact of a combined 105 billion, with the Mississippi River in the most, with the red bar at 34 billion. As per the blue bars, the cost of response is significantly less, it's 4 times less at 24 billion. So just contextualizing what this means in those particular river basins, the majority, as we will expect, is related to physical risks, in particular water pollution, water scarcity, water stress, and that just brings us the urgency to act. But I also like to bring to you some of the opportunities, some of the statistics on what the companies are saying on the value that they're finding on opportunities. We have 1,181 companies outlining that they are realizing 242 billion on opportunities, and they cover efficiency, looking into diversifying into in emerging markets, as well as creating new products and services. And in particular, when it comes to supply chain resilience for the Asia region, in particular Southeast Asia region, it's a hub of supply chains. We have 71 companies are indicating that they are investing in supply chain resilience at the value of 7 billion. And we also asked large buyers if they're incentivizing their suppliers to act. We have 147 large buyers indicating that they do so. Yet, obviously, we have almost 5,000 companies disclosing to us 147 large buyers. It's not a significant number. It just shows you that companies are starting to do something about incentivizing financially their suppliers, but much more needs to be done. And this is some of the examples in there. The premium pricing, the legal provisions, recognizing their suppliers, bonus schemes, supplier support loans, and in particular, this one example from loan support interest reduction by SKC in the Republic of Korea. They're actually investing about 1.5 million, if I'm looking at correctly, per month on their suppliers to ensure that they have their own water resource protection measures. So that's an example of incentivization of suppliers. Then in May at the World Water Forum, we released this policy note on the Southeast Asia region on the on the landscape of water disclosure. And this is so far in terms of the disclosure stats, but the brief itself just gives you more information about the different countries in there and what they're doing. We have a project supported by the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. And over the last 3 years, our aim in the region has been to increase disclosure in the first place. And as you can see, there's been a jump in companies that have been requested to disclose in 2023. And the response rate is hovering at just about 20% on 156 companies in Southeast Asia. And then when you look at the breakdown, manufacturers leading in Southeast Asia being the hub of supply chains, particularly to apparel and food and agriculture, we have low responses in that. And so there is that really a strong need to drive this some of these key sectors that we see. And so the overall message in here is that this is, as I said before, this has all been voluntary. Reporting to CDP over 14 years has been a voluntary landscape. And so we consider that the water reporting provisions in the region are insufficient and are not commensurate to the global and national challenges that these countries are facing. And now to the role of financial institutions, and they really play a vital role. We release a brief. It's a briefing to directors of financial institutions about their role and what they need to play, and it's by a strategic advisor to CDP, Annabelle Nelson, and my team, with a call to action to financial institutions, in particular 4 steps. The first step is to adopt a system approach. Don't just look at climate. Climate and water are interrelated. You need to put water into your business strategy, into your governance, into your business decision making. Really integrate water, similarly to the work that financial institutions are doing on climate. The second step is to assess risk, opportunities, dependencies, and impacts of water. So look at the financial materiality of your portfolio companies, but not only that. What is the impact that they're having on water ecosystems? So is this double materiality? And CDP, obviously, with the questionnaires, now with TNFD aligned, is looking at double materiality. The third step is to use your change levers, use your influence to ensure that your portfolio companies are driving sustainable water management. And how do you do that? How do you drive action? Being aware, having your governance, doing your risk assessments, that's the steps of being aware. But what is action? Use your voting rights. create products and services that are driving water security. Also, make sure that you're engaging with your portfolio companies, listen to them and what they need, and make sure that you're actively using your influence. And the fourth step is documenting and disclosing. And this is where we would like financial institutions to disclose to CDP to ensure that they are also accountable. So for 14 years, we've been asking companies to disclose on water. Now we're turning the lens to financial institutions. What are they using all that information to? What is it driving? Are you also driving efforts towards water security? And thanks to the Dutch Valuing Water Initiative, we created the first ever financial sector questionnaire on its second year now. And we're doing just that. We're making sure that financial institutions are engaged in the race, and we're trying to bring that pioneer race to the top for financial institutions. I'm going to show you some of the data. We have 350 financial institutions disclosing, and that's just in particular the spread in banking, asset management, asset ownership, and insurance, and the spread regionally, with Europe going ahead and followed by Asia Pacific and North America. However, 67% of those financial institutions are disclosing to us that they're not assessing water risks. And that's despite the figures that we've been putting forward for quite a number of years. Building governance, we have 148 financial institutions that are indicated to have board level oversight, and that's a crucial step to ensure you're starting to integrate water. Products and services, 118, and I'm going to show you one example. 72 of financial institutions are using their voting rights on water issues, are exercising their voting rights. And this is one of the capacity building tools that we created for financial institutions, and we released some of them, quite a number of them in June, but this has been going for 2 years. Again, thanks to the Valuing Water Initiative. It's a financial sector water action platform. You can access this information for free. But what I wanted to hone in is BNP Paribas, and as a case study, and you can see in blue, I'm not going to go through all of the indicators in here, but just to show you in blue some of their progress on assessing their portfolio, creating products and services, asking their portfolio companies information on accounting data, what type of information they're asking. When it comes to targets, they haven't set a target yet. And I'm going to dive deeper onto BNP Paribas. They are managing 121, they have 121 assets under management in European billions. Particularly in terms of products and services, I just like to hone in on 2 of them. The BNP Paribas Aqua Sustainable Fund, that's worth 3.1 billion, and it focuses on major infrastructure, water treatment, and utilities. But they also have the BNP Paribas Ecosystem Restoration. That's worth 68 million. And it focuses on aquatic ecosystems like water pollution control, flood control, terrestrial ecosystems like sustainable agriculture, forestry, plantations, and urban ecosystems such as waste management, recycling, and alternative modes of transport. They also have a policy to protect natural ecosystems and biodiversity, focusing on Brazil, the Amazon, and the Cerrado. Voting rights, they're indicating to us that they're voting, 98% are voting in favor of ESG resolutions. And in 2022, they updated their voting policy to include water and forest. And this last example that I have is on exercising voting rights. And the reason why I'm putting it here, and I appreciate you may not be able to see properly, but when I was presenting on stranded assets back in 2022 to financial institutions, one of them, I indicated the need for exercising the voting rights, and one of them indicated to me that he hadn't heard of any investor using their voting rights to drive water security. And so I'm glad to see that after 2 years, we have 72 exercising that, with making sure that water pollution, water withdrawal, or efficiency are put forward. Water and sanitation, low numbers, much more needs to be done. Putting an example here of Pictet Group, an asset manager in Switzerland. They have a portfolio company, Kraft Heinz, that we all know, and they voted in favor for this company to report on water. And also they're trying to make them drive water, to reduce the water-related risk. And part of the disclosure is to reduce the water-related risk, not only within the fence, but also in their supply chain. So that's of interest to this audience. So I'm leaving you with 2 case studies of financial institutions that are driving change. And we need more cases like this for Asia, obviously, and for many more financial institutions. And you can go onto our website. There's this video in particular with this company we're using as a case study. UMC is a semiconductor company. They face water stress, and they're investing heavily on water. And there's a story there for you to all know, in particular for the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for very informative keynote presentation. It is very good to know what the global trend and how situation is different in Asia Pacific, particularly in case of Southeast Asia. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Hirohito Yoshida. He is the manager of Sustainability Department of Yachiya Engineering. So, Yoshida-san, floor is for yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Asayama-san. My name is Hirohito Yoshida. I have been a sustainability consultant for Yachiyo Engineering since 2018. Today, I'd like to talk about CDP water security initiative used by Japanese companies. As you know, CDP is a British charity-controlled NGO, and they operate environmental disclosure system. They also has one of the most popular ESG ratings in the world today. As some of you may know, Japan has the highest number of companies in the world with an A score in the area of CDP water security. Worldwide, 101 companies received an A score, and 36 of these were in Japan. The number of disclosing companies in Japan has increased year by year, with 513 companies disclosing in 2023. Why are Japanese companies disclosing their information to CDP? And how did Japanese companies come to achieve their high ratings? I tried to find out from my clients why they do that. The result of our survey showed some interesting trends. I asked my clients if they disclosed willingly or if they felt pressured to do so. The results showed most companies indicated they had begun disclosing willingly. We further asked them what their expectations were in willingly disclosing the information. As a result, 50% of companies said it was to improve their brand image. 20% of companies said it was to understand the action required through disclosure to CDP. Another 20% said it was to compete against the competition. It seems the Japanese market thinks disclosing to CDP improves the brand image, or not disclosing to CDP diminishes the brand image. Then, how did Japanese companies achieve their high ratings? I am a sustainability consultant, and I support my clients in disclosure of information to CDP. I'd like to share one perspective based on my experience. Here are the 2023 scores of of the companies we supported in CDP water security. You can see many of them have achieved an A or A-. However, these companies did not achieve these scores from the outset. These companies also faced a number of challenges in the beginning. Company A had not assessed its water risks. Company B had not set water targets. Company C had not made progress in improving water efficiency. To address these issues, we support Company A with a water risk assessment, not only with a tool called Aqueduct, but also with a unique questionnaire. For Company B, we assist in setting water targets based on the characteristic of the catchment. For Company C, we also surveyed the plant and proposed water efficiency improvement plans based on the results of the survey. This way, we were able to improve the company's level of water risk preparedness by supporting its response to issues that could not be addressed by CDP. As a result, we believe CDP score has also improved. I researched the benefit of companies disclosing information to CDP. As a result, over 80% of respondents were able to identify their company's current level. In addition, around 60% of the respondents said their sustainability assessment scores had improved, and 55% of the respondents said they were able to identify the necessary action on the environmental issues. The results also suggest Japanese companies are able to improve their level of water risk response by taking initiatives that are lacking through CDP. In Japan, CDP is beginning to take root on the market. It is extremely important to not only disclose information, but also take action towards a sustainable society. CDP can be used as a measure to ascertain the level of your company. It can also be used to identify necessary initiatives. For this reason, it is important to start with disclosure. In Japan, some companies are yet to disclose their information. We hope the sustainability disclosure will become more common in the Asia-Pacific region in the future. That's all I wanted to say for now. Thank you everyone for your attention. I think we are doing the panel discussion next. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for Yoshida-san for introducing the Japanese case. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Gregoris Gilang from Indonesia, Manager of Sustainability and ESG, Indonesia Global Compact Network, and also Miss Lady Filiani. She is also PTPPLI, one of the company in Indonesia. They will present the Indonesia's case. And are you ready?
Yes,
Thank
Yumiko.
you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. My name is Gilang, and I'm here to discuss a crucial initiative aimed at localizing and accelerating water resilience across the globe, the Forward Faster Water Resilience Targets. Next slide, please. I'm here representing the United Nations Global Compact, specifically the Indonesia Country Network. As part of the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, the UN Global Compact brings together over 21,000 businesses and 3,800 non-business participants from 160 countries, all committed to aligning their strategies and operations with universal principles on human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Next slide, please. The Indonesia Country Network, with its 159 members and growing, plays a pivotal role in driving sustainable business practice across the nations. We work closely with companies to support their efforts in advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in areas like water stewardship, environmental sustainability, and corporate governance. With a focus on local contexts and challenges, we provide a platform for collaboration, learning, and actions. Next slide, please. As we reach the halfway mark to 2030, it is evident that the world is not on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in the area of water resilience. Water scarcity, poor water quality, and inadequate sanitation continue to pose significant risks to communities, ecosystems, businesses alike. To address these challenges, we must act together with greater urgency and coordination. Next slide. The Forward Faster Water Resilience Target, launched under the CEO Water Mandate, is a collective effort to build water resilience across global operations and supply chains. The goal is to achieve positive water impact in at least 100 vulnerable and prioritized water basins by 2030. These basins have been selected based on their high risks related to water quality, quantity, and accessibility, as well as their biodiversity importance and susceptibility to future climate risk. Next slide, please. To meet this target, companies are encouraged to take coordinated actions, share learnings, and measure their impact using a common validated approach. The initiative emphasizes accountability and transparency, requiring companies to publicly declare their commitments and report on their progress annually. This includes setting and achieving specific targets related to water quality, water quantity, and accessibility in their direct operations, supply chains, as well as local communities. Next slide, please. A critical aspect of this initiative is the need for localized reporting. To effectively contribute to water resilience, companies must focus on the basins of interest where their operations and supply chains are most impactful. By prioritizing these basins, especially those within the CEO Water Mandate's 100 priority basins, companies can ensure that their actions directly address the specific water challenges of those regions. One of these basins is the Java Basins, located in the East Java region of Indonesia. Next slide, please. As of today, 69 companies across Asia and Oceania have committed to this target, with 10% being Indonesian companies. Now, please allow me to highlight an inspiring example from Indonesia, PT PPLI, a wastewater management company that has committed to the Forward Faster Water Resilience Target. PT PPLI plays a crucial role in the water value chains, addressing the challenges of water quality and accessibility. Their commitment to this target reflects a strong dedication to sustainable water management and their efforts to serve as a model for other companies in the region. PT PPLI is actively working to make a positive impact in the basins they operate in, contributing to the broader goals of water resilience and sustainability. And with that, I hand this over to Ibu Lely from PT PPLI.
Hi, everyone. Greeting from Indonesia. Selamat siang, good afternoon. We are very thankful as a member of Indonesia Global Compact Network to have this opportunity to a little bit telling stories about Indonesian case, how our efforts to tackle the water scarcity challenges in Indonesia. Next slide, please. All right, this is the title. It's innovative water recycling in PT-PPLI to tackle global water scarcity. Right, next. Yeah, Gilang mentioned about water mandate prior. So why signing this mandate? PPLI has been operating more than 30 years as a green business for wastewater treatment and waste management overall. So we are deeply committed to achieve 100% compliance in waste management. This is to solidify our role as a key of green business stakeholder in Indonesia. We also prioritize to minimize the environmental impact on the water bodies, especially the Cilengsi River, which supports numerous domestic and industrial activities upstream. It's very close to our facility. PPLI also dedicated to reducing its internal water consumption as part of sustainable operational practices. This is especially for groundwater. So we also take proactive measures to monitor and protect our groundwater, our groundwater quality, ensuring the environmental integrity of its waste management operations. Next slide, please. So as mentioned prior about the disclosure of the water in Indonesia, and as a company, we have two sections. We are doing it as voluntarily basis, and we also report it as part of the requirement from the government. So for the voluntarily basis, we record all of the groundwater usage. We also record our basin water usage from the rainwater, and we also record the recycled water in our facility, and also, of course, when we are doing the surveying activities to the remote area. So these are kind of reports that we do for now. We are doing the regularly basis 6 months monitoring report for the quality and also quantity. And we also report it to the government through the Ministry of Environment and Forestry media. It's called Simple, and and now we are also start doing some asking the government to calculate more the carbon footprint related to this water. Right, next slide, please. So in general, we are recycling more than 15,000 cubic meters water in a year. And for a comparison, this number plus the basin water is double than our groundwater intake. So we are really trying to minimize the groundwater intake and maximize the recycling or the usage of water basin. Next slide, please. So one of our ultimate utilities to do the recycling is our evaporator plus bioplants. This is very powerful to treat the leachate treatment, to treat the high TDS and high COD, and also able to recycle more than 15,000 cubic meter in a year. And especially during the very hot season like this, it is possible to make zero discharge for the effluent to our river, to Cilengsi River, So that's kind of our effort to recycling all of the water that sourced by our internal waste and also our intake waste from the waste generator. And we try to make it as clean as possible so that we can recycle to our internal utilities. Next slide, please. And this one of the unit plants that also can serve the facilities in the remote area, for example, oil and gas drilling activities. We are able to do treatment for the water-based mud cuttings and the wastewater from the drilling activities so that the water can be produced meet all of the threshold limit value, the very good quality of water because there's not so much ammonia content inside and it's recycled not so much. So the quality is quite good. And unfortunately, even though as you can see in the right hand side, the quality is visually look good, the local people on at the area are not willing to use it for their washing or other purposes because they have some belief systems and they have some preference about how the water should be produced. So it's kind of challenges in our country as well. Next slide, please. So in Indonesia, as you know, water is I believe also in every part of the world, water is a very important part of our life. So can conserve it in Indonesia case, we have to conserve it because it's not also for our daily needs, but it's also for a soul and body, and we need to respect it and conserve it. So that's from Indonesia, our story about how PPLI committed to conserve and recycle the water to reduce the water intake from the groundwater. Thank you, Gilang. Back to you.
Thank you, Buleli. Back to you, Miko. Thank you.
Ready for introduce Indonesia's case. It is good to know Indonesia is committing to kind of environmental reporting for water resilience through Global Compact Networks initiative. And it is also very good to know the case of PPLI and responding to the water recycling and waste management. And that is very important and very leading trend while most of Asian countries wastewater management is not responded well, and SDG 3.6.3 is very getting behind. So this kind of reporting while we encouraging to respond, we also need to accelerate the action for SDG 6.3 in Asia. Next, we would like to move on to the panel discussion. Now, I would like to invite Patricia. She takes moderating role of this panel discussion. And panelists will be from Miss Asa Kunda-Stars. She is Senior Advisor, Climate and Sustainable Finance at SEB. And Ms. Gay Santos, Regional Director, Southeast Asia Water.org. She will join online. And then we will also welcome another panelist who already made the presentation. Mr. Hirohito Yoshida, Yachio Engineering, and Gilang from Indonesia, working at the Indonesia Global Compact Network, and Lily will also support. So,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for everyone. So we're going to be looking into the user perspective, and a warm welcome to all of you joining us here and online. It is my pleasure to be moderating this panel discussion on sustainable finance for water security through a standardized reporting and accountability. In this panel discussion, we're going to be digging a little bit deeper into some of the topics that we have touched upon earlier in the presentations, with a deeper focus on how these standards and disclosures can drive action across the globe. And so I'm therefore going to be welcoming Mrs. Asha Nathan-Sturter, Senior Advisor, Climate and Sustainable Finance at SEV, a bank, now joining us for the panel discussion. Anil boasts years of experience working on SFDR, the Green Taxonomy, and the CSRD, and will bring her extensive knowledge of the European regulations and an extremely valuable financial perspective that we need in this discussion desperately. Joining us also in the panel is Mrs. Gay Santos. We have Mrs. Yes, perfect. Regional Director of Southeast Asia from Water.org, whom not only brings years of experience in inclusive and sustainable finance, but also a strong Southeast Asia perspective, and in particular, good strong focus on WASH. Staying with us is Mr. Hirohito Yoshida, Manager of Sustainability Services at Yachijo Engineering, which is a CDP's accredited service provider in Japan, and will share with us some of the insights from his experience further to the support that he's providing companies on driving their water security journey. Also staying with us is Gregorius Gilland, Manager Sustainability and ESG from the Indonesian Global Compact Network. He's a microbiologist by training and oversees the ESG questions in the organization as the manager of the Compact, and brings an acute understanding of the Indonesian context. So first I'm going to be having some rounds of questions. My first one is to set the stage, and particularly on the evolutions in the standardized reporting. And I'm going to turn to Sev. Let me first welcome Asa Knudsen-Sterte. You have quite an extensive resume. I just covered in terms of issues relating to disclosure of the European regulations are now here, including negotiating on behalf of the Swedish Ministry of Finance, the SFDR, the Green Taxonomy. You're now working at SEV, and that is to say you have spent years really working and advocating for disclosure, and is now here. And so before we dig deeper into the Asia-Pacific context specifically, could you please share with us a little of your experience and tell us, especially for our Asia-based audience, how you think that these recent evolutions in the European disclosure are actually impacting the discussion on the standard disclosure globally?
Thanks a lot for being able to be here. I can talk a lot about regulations. And I just would like to go back to 2015, when the European Union committed to the net zero emissions target by 2050. And they realized they need to get the private sector engaged. And one may think that the easiest way would be to just change the regulations to the company to change behavior directly. But it was deemed quite a challenge. So instead, they went for the financial sector and started with the investors. And that way you change the behavior, a very nice way of nudging. And the first set of disclosure regulations was proposed in 2018, and that was the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, requiring the investors to report on how they take account of sustainability into investment decisions, and also the Green Taxonomy, this classification system on activities that are considered green or not, according to some thresholds and definitions made within the EU. And now we also have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, applying directly to corporates. And there were some criticism back then why you started with the investors instead of the companies, because the investors are so dependent on the information that the companies are reporting on. And in the hindsight, I think that was actually a good strategy, because that also made it easier to negotiate the CSRD and develop the sustainability standards, the ESRS, because then you could always blame that, yes, but this is what the investors want. They need this. Otherwise, they won't give you any investments. And I mean, EU was first out, and I do really think that they have had a greater impact on the reporting, because we can see taxonomies in different regions, and now we also last year had the first set of the international ISSB standards. And I think there are some lessons to learn from the EU work. The greatest criticism towards the EU regulations is that they are too detailed, It's causing a lot of administrative burdens, and you have a lot of data challenges. And I think this criticism have escalated now when we had these international ISSB standards, because as Patricia was mentioning, it's important for investors and corporates to have this level playing field on an international level. But a personal reflection is that, I mean, EU regulations are far from perfect. But I think the greatest benefit with the EU regulations was that we started it. And I think you put some high requirements, because the traditional financial accounting reporting standards took ages to develop. So I think it's a bit unfair to require that the sustainable finance regulations are going to be perfect from day one. So I think we need to do it step on step. And a really nice experience being on the negotiating side and now implementing it is that, I mean, on a principle level, it sounds so easy. And then the devil is in the detail. I mean, it's, so personal view is that the taxonomy has kind of grown from a kind of quite nice, good thing, helpful thing, to a kind of administrative nightmare for a lot of companies. But this is, I mean, this is our trial and errors that just need to be overcome. And I do really think that it's a good thing. And the only concern I have is that when the disclosure requirements are taking all the time from the actions, because what we want with the disclosure is to push for behavioral change. And if all the efforts in the company goes towards doing the reporting, so they don't have time to actually change their company strategy, then, I mean, then we have a challenge. And so this is a balancing act, and I think I just stop here and we come back to ways of challenging these opportunities.
Thanks, Asa. Not let perfection be the enemy of the good, and balancing act on trying to move forward and get this right. The next one is in terms of challenging opportunities, and from the user perspective, with Jachiro Engineering, Mr. Hirohito, and from Gregorius from the Indonesian Global Compact. We have heard the European perspective. Given your work in the Japanese and Indonesian markets, both of which operate potentially, I can imagine, in the different perspective, how has the Japanese, Indonesian markets and APA more generally reacted to this regulatory push that is coming from Europe?
とそうですね、欧州からの規制のところについては日本企業も非常に着目しています。CSRD などについても新しいルールに対しても日本企業の中で、対応を準備を進めている企業も多くございます。ただ日本の良くないところとしましては、ルールメイキングが日本の企業非常に苦手でして、日本の中に企業の中にももっとルールメイキングのところに、入っていかなければというところで、ポジティブに考えているような企業、野心的に考えている企業もいます。はい。
So yes, the Japanese companies are really ready and also responding to these different standards, such as the CSRD from the European standard, and they are also really getting prepared to really accept those European regulations. At the same time, the Japanese are not really good at making its own standard. We always tend to accept the standard that is coming from overseas, but there are some companies who are actually quite interested to explore such opportunities that maybe perhaps some things has to be done from our side as well.
Great, thank you for that. And as Mr. Hirohito indicated, we have Japanese companies who are top of the list in terms of the number of that are A-listers in CDP, in the water security questionnaire. And the same question to Mr. Gregorius from the Global Compact network on
Yep.
how is the regulations coming from Europe impacting
Yep.
your
Thank you
work?
so much, Patricia. From an Indonesian perspective, we're observing that many companies, particularly those with significant exposures to EU markets, are increasingly aware of the need to align with these evolving regulations. These companies are actively seeking guidance on how to prepare themselves for this new landscape. They understand that meeting these standards is not just about maintaining access to European markets, but also about staying competitive globally. However, it's important to note that most companies in Indonesia are still grappling with compliance with local regulations. The regulatory environment in Indonesia can be complex, and for many businesses, particularly SMEs, just adhering to local standards can be challenging. When we add the layer of international regulations, such as those from the EU, it becomes more daunting. The situation underscores the need for clear guidance and capacity building initiatives that can help Indonesian companies bridge the gap between local and international compliance. The ongoing dialogue and collaboration between stakeholders in Indonesia and Europe will be crucial in ensuring that companies can successfully navigate these challenges and leverage the opportunities that come with meeting the new standards. Thank you, Patricia.
Great, thank you for that Indonesian perspective. And I'm now going to move us to Sev again with Asha. What do you see? You mentioned now some of the challenges, started to elaborate on them. What are the challenges that you're seeing on this standardized disclosure in particular? Are there any pertaining to the data availability, the quality? How do you think this could be addressed now that you're on the other side? As a representative for a financial institution, do you see any opportunities in Asia, in particular when it comes to developing any products and services?
I start with the first one. So again, it's a balancing act. There is no kind of silver bullet to solve this, I think. You need to choose between kind of comparability and relevance, because if it's comparable, it's not going to be relevant for everyone. And if it's relevant for everybody, you cannot compare with anyone. I think from my experience, I would say that it would be preferable, at least on the mandatory part, to start with fewer KPIs and metrics, and really try to make everybody disclose on them, because I also think that will help the data availability. Because when we started with the emission data as well, emission disclosures, everybody said that it's impossible because we don't have the information. But I mean, it's as with supply and demand. If everybody demands data on emissions, we will develop methods to get that information. And I think if we start with fewer KPIs, we will kind of mobilize the efforts to try to get as much information we can and get a good data set. And then we can step by step also expand to other KPIs and metrics. And I also think, because that's on the mandatory level, then I think you will always have room to use more detailed disclosure data, as was shown here by the Global Compact, if you compare companies within a specific sector. But I think from an investor standpoint, having a first look at the companies, you would like to have kind of simple comparability. And I mean, at the SEB side, we use regulations and standards a lot in the advisory and in products. So on the advisory, for example, I mean, we have the sustainable finance disclosure regulations, and one of the mandatory KPIs is emissions to water. I mean, as a company, of course, you should try to get that data, because, I mean, if investors are looking for that KPIs and they need to report on it, of course, they will look at companies providing that information. And also, I think it's good also to be aware of the regulations and standards, because then you can also advise the companies that in 2 years' time, you will need to report on this and this. And then you can kind of prioritize your strategy, and you also know how to communicate to your stakeholders. And on the products, we see more and more interest in these performance-linked products. So sustainability-linked bonds and loans, for example. And it's quite convenient to try to align KPIs and metrics that you will need to report on anyway, and then kind of articulate those and highlight those in a sustainability linked product, because that also kind of gets some synergies and decrease the extra administrative burdens. So for us, I think these standards and regulations are a great toolbox for the kind of product development and strategic discussions with the companies.
Thank you, Asa, for that perspective. And now we're going to the Geoengineering and the Indonesian Global Compact, Mr. Hirohito and Gregorius, on the challenges. How can standardized reporting and enhance accountability and transparency for the private sector in Japan and Indonesia, and how do you see these challenges?
どんなようなチャレンジがレポーティングに関してあるかってちょっとどんな
ですね。レポーティングに関して言うと、日本の企業の中では独自の企業の中の、水の管理というところではしっかりしている企業が多いかなと思っています。しかしながら、サプライチェーンの領域まで、管理ができているかというと、まだまだそこは課題である企業が多いかなというふうに思っています。ですので、今日本の企業も、サプライチェーンの管理について、チャレンジしているようなところで、な状況です。
So in Japan, many companies are quite good at managing its own water within their own territory, within their company. However, they are not yet really up to standard in terms of managing the supply chain. So this is the real challenge in the coming period.
Thank you for that. We also saw that in latest global report on supply chains that there was much action needs to be on supply. Mr. Gregorius?
Yep. Thank you, Patricia. So the United Nations Global Compact Network Indonesia has taken significant steps to advance this accountability and transparency agenda through our initiative like the Forward Faster Water Resilience Target. This initiative aims to boost the ambition of Indonesia's private sector in setting meaningful targets that contribute to the accelerations of SDGs. However, setting target is just the beginning. To ensure that these targets are met and to measure progress, robust reporting is essential. Recognizing the challenges companies face in reporting, especially in complex areas like water stewardships and carbon accounting, simplified reporting formats have been introduced. These formats are designed to make the progress more accessible and integrated, helping companies track and report their progress more efficiently. And maybe Wu Lely from PPLI can add some more examples from your company.
Yeah, perhaps in 1 minute. We cannot hear you.
I think you're muted.
From Indonesia, from PPLI, we are supporting this reporting for the sustainable finance because it's very important, especially in Indonesia. What we did, we are reducing our groundwater and with the recycle, it's not really recognized by, for example, the investor or even probably the government. If it can be connected with kind of the policy or investment from the finance sector, it would be better. That's the message.
Thank you. The recognition of efforts on the ground. And now waiting patiently, Mrs. Gay Santos from Water. She's a regional director for Southeast Asia. And she's focusing on the one important but often overlooked sector, and that is water and sanitation, access to water and sanitation, WASH, and the ways to mobilize capital to provide safer water and sanitation for those in need, notably in Southeast Asia. But beyond your current role, you have been an inclusive finance advocate for years, working on related topics at the World Bank or the institutional finance corporations. And so from this path of experiences that you have in the area, how do you think standards are helping or will help in mobilizing capital for the better provision of WASH services? And how can these standards support the goal? And do you see any opportunities that lie ahead, and what are the challenges that you foresee?
Yes, thank you very much. A lot of questions altogether. But I think I want to emphasize, as you know, we are far away from meeting our SDG goal in terms of the financing gap, not just for SDG as a whole, but SDG 6 as well. Hearing it from our co-panelists, I've heard behavioral change, I've heard the supply chain challenge. I believe we can bucket the standards in two steps. One is a most straightforward standard are the metrics. I mean, what cannot be achieved, cannot be achieved. At water.org, we're about providing market-driven solution so that we can increase access to finance to safe water and sanitation. And we work with financial institutions for them to adopt a loan product dedicated to water and sanitation to reach the last mile, those households in earning $3 to $6 a day. On the other side of the equation, we work with water utilities, and we also work with enterprises, the supply chain, because they also are struggling to access finance, and we should view these enterprises as a subset of small, medium enterprises trying to be part of the financial system, but could not be part of the financial system because in several countries across the world, the default of financial institutions is hard collateral. And you cannot find this hard collateral in books of small, medium enterprises in the supply chain, particularly water and sanitation sector. So going back to the standards, it's important to set those standards, given that we have to have a unified direction to reach 2030. I mentioned about the standards into three. One, the most straightforward one, which is very tangible. We measure our work, and I think this is shared universally by the people that have access to water and sanitation. We also measure our work through the financing that is mobilized for technical assistance to water and sanitation. And we have what you call the volumetric water benefit, which is used to measure water stewardship. And then that segues to the second bucket of standard. Behavioral change was mentioned by my co-panelists. I think a standard should be set in terms of mindset of all the stakeholders that are advocating for SDG, for working towards SDG. Specifically to water, you have the corporate water stewardship, which means a set mindset among private sector to use water in a socially equitable way, environmentally sustainable way, and economically beneficial way. Because as you know, according to SSD, fiscal risk is becoming an increasing concern in terms of business decisions. And water-related risk is anticipated to be translating to $5.6 billion in losses by 2050. Another big mindset is what I would point a word of I coined, which is SDG, purpose-driven capital. I know we're a year from the endemic, but what the pandemic demonstrated is our reliance on others. A business cannot be sustainable without taking into account the sustainability of the community it operates. And the third bucket is the enabling policies. I believe the panels have spoken about the struggle for accessing finance, the importance of the roles of financial institutions. Again, there's this missing middle, the small, medium enterprises that contribute to the supply chain that play a critical role in achieving the SDG. They don't have the access to finance. So laws should be in place that can enable them to access finance There's what we call secure transactions fee form, which enhances the creditor confidence in lending based on collateral other than land, which means small medium enterprises can put their cash flow, their accounts receivables as collateral, what they actually have, be able to access finance. And in terms of standard, the World Bank has set a standard in the form of legal rights index, which measures how each country are doing in terms of reforms and laws to enable access to finance for these enterprises. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that elaborate answer. Really, really pointing into the fact of how the regulations are affecting your sector. And now we're coming to the close of the panel. So I'm going to ask our panelists to give us a key message that you'd like the audience to leave with. So perhaps a key sentence to summarize this very complex topic. And starting with you, Ashla.
I think I will just echo you, because I think it's important to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think just start and then just develop step by step.
Thank you.
先ほどの講演の中でも話したことなんですけれども、CDP というのがですね、標準化された情報開示の中で持続可能性について足りないもの、そういったものを棚卸しするようなことに明らかになると思いますので、まずは情報開示をしながら自分たちに必要なアクションというものを見つけていくのが重要じゃないかと思っています。
So as I mentioned in my previous speech, CDPs, the standardized information disclosure such as CDP really supports companies to understand what is lacking from their sustainability effort and its potential. So that's like really useful. So utilize such a standardized tool as a way to stock take the current practices and for the future improvements. I think that is really the key message.
Thank you. Mr. Gregorius?
Yeah, so my key takeaway would be like for companies, they can start by setting targets first and then move on from that by measuring progress through reporting, starting from simple standards, then move on to after data have been collected, they can then adopt a more sort of advanced standards right after that. Yep.
Great. Mrs. Laley?
Sorry, there's a sound back from the praying sound, Indonesia, but hope you can hear it well. As we continue to advance the sustainable finance and water security, it's crucial that we prioritize to develop localized guidelines. As I mentioned, make it simple as possible. That can capture a broader spectrum of data, simple but can capture, and we just need to move forward. That's it.
Thank you. I think I heard the last few words. We need to really move forward these initiatives. Ms. Kay Santos?
Yes, standardization is very important so that all of us will have a unified vision and goal towards 2030 and not have a fragmented approach. Transparency is key. However, the most important standard to set is the behavioral standard, and I advocate for an SDG purpose-driven capital mindset.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So for all of you here, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the efforts of this panel. As you can see online and here, and I'll pass to Miko. Oh, perfect. Yes.
Okay. We would like to have a question from audience here and also from online. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Boudewijn van Silvout. Apologies for the long name. we work, I represented a company that provides data for the UN on water efficiency. And I was wondering, I have a question for Mr. Gilang. If I understand well, then the UN Global Compact has selected 100 basins as a priority to, let's say, manage the health of that basin. To what extent is global data being used to get an idea of what the current health and the progress per basin is? Is there something to be said about that?
Yeah.
Is the question clear?
Thank you so much for the questions.
I think you're on mute.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. So the basins data, they are actually managed by our research arm from the Global Compact Network. We work together with the Pacific Institute or the CEO Water Mandate. I'm sure they have a lot of sessions with the World Water Week. If you can find one of their sessions, they can tell more about how they do the data analysis with the basins of interest. But in Indonesia, we are currently working with our water working groups, so corporations who are interested in doing more sort of a collective actions to get together and do a collective actions on a specific basins in our region in East Java. We are starting to get more and more interest from the private sectors in focusing on that certain basins because of those water action platforms. So if you want to know more, you can actually visit their website. It's called the Water Action Hub from the CEO Water Mandate. I hope that answers the question. I'm so sorry.
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So find CEO Water Mandate. They should be in the session in person.
I have another question, maybe two. So one thing is that I know in Indonesia there's a law that requires companies to provide that abstract groundwater to return 15% of that volume in wash, so drinking water or sanitation solutions to the local communities. I'm just wondering, is there also reporting on that, for example, to the CDP disclosure, because they have to disclose on groundwater, right? But also maybe on that 15% rule, because then it gets interesting. And another thing what I've seen in Indonesia is that like a big organization there has said, okay, our goal is to get people on basic access to drinking water and basic access to sanitation, which in my mind doesn't make sense, because like the UN goal is to have safe access, right? So why do we still encourage companies to not target for actually the UN standards? I'm just curious if can we do something to make them more ambitious in that regard and use those regulations for that?
Yep.
I'm not sure who should answer this question, but
yeah, oh good, no worries. My quick answer is the 15% wash targets is like my first answer is they're not measuring it, but maybe Buleli can chip more, provide more additional thoughts on that.
As far as I know, it's not recorded as an obligation, but you can record it by voluntarily. Yeah.
Yeah. With regards to SDGs, we are starting to introduce to companies through our initiative, the Forward Faster campaign that we did this year, to set more ambitious targets through SDGs, because SDGs targets are not like translatable to companies per se. They are for governments, local governments or country. So we're working with businesses to sort of help them how to translate those targets into more sort of a corporate targets through our programs in the Forward Faster campaign, as well as the SDG ambitions. So that's where we're sort of kind of translating the SDG 6 to create this target called the net positive water impact. And that's also based around basins of interest as well, focusing on 3 aspects: so quality, quantity, and access.
Yeah, hello, my name is Christoph Schmont from the EU Water Facility. My question goes out to Asa. I've become a fan of the taxonomy through gauging desalination investments to see if and how they can be green. It's quite challenging. But the point is, now that the taxonomy is really coming into its own, what are the monitoring and enforcement mechanisms? I don't have a grasp on that yet. And going back to this gentleman's question, when you consider supply chains, when companies are considering their supply chains, can you track it back to the river basin? So to see which river basins are losing water, for example, through exports of agricultural products, what have you, and which basins might be importing water de facto. So that's a sort of a 2-parted question. Thank you.
And as I said, the taxonomy, the principle behind the taxonomy is quite simple, and then the implementation is a nightmare sometimes. And we need to remember that this is only disclosure regulations. And at the start of the negotiations, we discussed the need for monitoring and who would kind of be responsible to provide fines if not complying. But because it's not a behavioral law, there is only supervisory if you have reported in the correct way. So as a company, you are obliged to have any kind of audit ensuring that you have reported in the correct way. So that's the way the taxonomy is kind of yeah, it works like that.
If I may add to your question in terms of data for river basins, in particular those companies allocating and river basins, in the CDP water questionnaire, we already have facility level accounting water data, and it's been going for years. That river basin map that I put in there, that's only for 10 critical river basins. There's more basins in there. And what we ask companies is to, obviously as part of their assessment, they look into the aqueduct, as has been just shown here, and then they find those areas that are water stress. Once you find those areas that are water stress, then we are asking them to disclose their water-related risks, and also we're asking them to disclose the volumes that they're withdrawing from those areas. We're asking them about their financial impact, that of risk, of water risks, as well as the magnitude, when is it going to be affecting. So we go to a significant level of detail when it comes to facility level accounting. And so there's a lot of data in there that we can harbor. And one of the things, part of the alignment with TNFD, I mean, TNFD is asking for you need to do an assessment and prioritize as per the LEAP approach. What the CDP questionnaire, it's already asking companies to do the assessment and to prioritize and to disclose that data, river basin data. And we've been at the community, obviously, the 100 priority basins, we also have that in there, and it's just sort of conversations about collective action and where to prioritize focus. I mean, in terms of CDP, we have the data, and we can, we're keen to put that data to service to the community. If that answers part of the second question.
Yes, I have a small question to Dr. Calderon, please, about, excuse me, we had a rough night yesterday, about efficiency. So there's a lot of disclosure going on. I just did a quick back of the envelope calculation. The largest brewer in the world uses as much water for its production as the country where I'm coming from, the Netherlands. Our drinking water consumption is equal to that company. Now, the Netherlands is a very small country. So my rather provocative statement is that these companies are not that important. The real water footprint is elsewhere. So my question really is, how are you as CDP going to ensure that you do become more relevant and comparable and actually start tackling the real problem? Because I would state that the water efficiency of this large brewer is irrelevant. And why are we comparing water efficiencies across companies when the real problem is in the supply chain?
And that's an excellent question, the supply chains. So as I was saying before, companies have to undertake an assessment, and we're asking them to use these tools, and they will see in those tools that where water stress areas are, and if they have facilities in there, and we're asking them to disclose on those areas. And what's been happening is, as our report back in 2022, is we got really great data on what companies are disclosing within the fence, within operations. They're indicating that they have back in 22 potential value of opportunity was about 134 billion. And within that was efficiency, it was creating new products and services, it was diversifying to new markets, it was some supply chain resilience, and I put some figures today. Then this year we looked into the supply chain, what are large buyers doing when it comes to the suppliers beyond the fence. And in Euro, I mean, we found that within 3,163 large buyers that we're asking, what are you doing in your supply chains? About half of them are requesting information, and they're trying to engage with their suppliers. But 20% of these large buyers are assessing the water risk. That's 20%. So that's 623 companies that are assessing water risk in their suppliers. That's the first step in becoming to act. And then we also look into board level oversight. If the large buyers are incentivizing their C-suite to work on suppliers, and there's only I think it's a handful, about 4% are doing so. And when we look into engagement with suppliers, and I even put that figure in there, 147 large buyers are incentivized, are actually providing some finance to suppliers to act, and the numbers are less. And in here, I think yesterday you heard the Just Transition for Water Security water program that the UK government has unleashed, and we're part of that. It's called the Fair Water Footprint for that, because as we know, half of the water, as we know in Global North, a lot of the footprint comes from external sources, from the Global South, and it's, as per Water International, half of the water that we consume in the Global North comes from unsustainable sources facing severe water scarcity. And so what we're going to be doing over the next 4 years is to really focus on activating the supply chains. In the integrated questionnaire that we have now, we are expanding with metrics beyond the fence, so asking about for companies to start disclosing on the water accounting, so the water footprints of their suppliers. We have had feedback from companies saying, how am I going to start estimating this? And as per what Asa indicated, it has to be put forward. It might take a few years, potentially for companies. The methodologies will probably need to be more refined, but we're going to start asking in that, because of our role in this Fair Water Footprint program we want to track the action of the private sector, looking at the indicators, water footprint, the water accounting, the sustainable water management of water. It's one of the goals. Another goal is zero water pollution. As we know, it's a major issue in supply chains. The other is access to water and sanitation for all workers. That's one of the goals of the declaration. The fourth one is climate resilience. What are you doing? What are you doing in terms of your investment to floods and droughts and adaptation? And the fifth one is it's ecosystem protection, so in terms of nature-based solutions. So this is our goal, to activate the private sector, use the private sector questionnaire as the means and the tools to engage companies, but not only companies, as I put it here. We're going to be asking financial institutions to also be more engaged and to bring those stories. We're going to have evidence from one of our partners, Water International, about what's happening on the ground. And he's got fantastic. His NGO has got fantastic case studies that are in terms of really good information about really terrible things. And so we're going to put a light on that, so that we bring that information to companies and for financial institutions to be more aware of water risk. So perhaps that answers your question, where yes, we know there's much work that needs to be done on supply chains.
So thank you so much for Patricia for moderating this panel discussion, and also I also thank you for all panelists in here and also online. I really appreciate your all sharing your perspective, challenge, and lesson. And in Asia Pacific region, still water issue is considered as one of government role. So that's why it is also very, very important. We also need to enhance awareness of government through through beneficiary to respond to environmental disclosure through CDP way of standard and also global compact way of network way of standardized matter. Both focus on Beijing scale to enhance water resilience, and both also trying to improve environmental sustainability, not only in terms of water but also from biodiversity, climate risk through greenhouse gas emission reduction and so on. And that is also very, very important to enhance how water is related to all sectors and how it is also beneficial to respond to water aspect through non-water government, non-water private sector agency. And one thing we are still lacking of way enhancing capacity building, and it's also taking time to respond to each individual organization to enhance awareness and behavior change through one by one workshop. That's why it is also important to establish a kind of regional platform to improve the awareness of environmental disclosure, sustainability is through making use of this kind of international conference, but also through making use of webinar and so on. And next, actually, groundwater issue is very, very important response, but still it is new challenge, still a lot of challenge. But in next session, which we are organizing from 11 o'clock in C2, we discuss how we can make use of AI and recent information technology to address the conventional issues such as groundwater issue in Indonesia. We discussed that and how we can incorporate local customer situation into the information technologies and so on, and institutional improvement of institutional architecture of Asia Pacific is very, very important, and we really need support from CDP global team and SEB or any European company to enhance awareness and also behavior change of Asia Pacific region. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for audience to listen to this session.